Quiet, dependable power changed how I camp and how I deal with outages at home. I can cook, work, and keep my phone and camera topped up without babysitting anything or worrying about tripping a breaker. This is the GRECELL L1000 Portable Power Station. I have been using it as my go-to power source for car camping, road trips, and a couple of inconvenient blackouts. It fits into that sweet spot where you want more than a little power bank, but you are not trying to run a full house. If you are a camper, a weekend traveler, someone who films on location, or you just want a compact backup for essentials, this sits right in that lane. The design looks simple, but the choices matter. It is a solid rectangular body with rounded corners and a thick rubber handle that actually feels good to carry. At around 17 pounds, it is not something I would backpack with, but moving it from the garage to the car or across the living room is easy. The corners have rubber protection that has already saved me from a couple of clumsy bumps, and there is enough grip on the feet that it does not slide around in the trunk. The color is that understated dark gray with black accents that blends in anywhere. On top there is a wireless charging pad with a subtle texture, which keeps my phone from skating off when the car hits a pothole. The front layout is clean and practical. Ports are grouped logically, the main power button is obvious, and there are separate buttons to turn on the wall-style outlets and the low-voltage ports. The only design nitpick I have is the placement of the wall outlets being a little low. If you use a bulky brick or an angled laptop charger, it can bump into the surface underneath, especially if you rely on international adapters. Setup took me minutes. Inside the box I found all the cables I actually use, which sounds small, but it saved me from hunting down adapters. There is a wall charger, a cable for the car 12-volt socket, and a cable for connecting a solar panel when I want to charge off the sun. There is also a little organizer bag, which keeps everything in one place so I am not digging under the seats for a missing cord. I pressed the power button, the liquid crystal display lit up, and I was off. The display is bright enough to read outdoors, and that matters when you are trying to manage power while the sun is high. Power groups are controlled separately. When I want to run the wall-style outlets, I tap that button. When I only need the universal serial bus ports for phones and cameras, I tap the other one. Wireless charging ties into the universal serial bus group, so you do have to enable it first. That tripped me once on day one, and then it made perfect sense. What stood out in actual use is how little thought it requires. I am not scrolling through complicated menus or translating cryptic icons. I plug in, press a button, and it works. The fans do kick on when I push it hard, but they are a low whoosh rather than a whine, and outdoors the sound disappears into the background. Inside a quiet room, I still find it unobtrusive. Thermals have been well behaved for me. I have cooked, charged, and filmed on warm afternoons without it overheating or throttling down. Power delivery feels honest. It has handled the combination of a small single-burner induction plate on a low to medium setting, a mini blender for smoothies, a couple of phones, a camera battery charger, and a small desk fan, all at once. I typically run 6 to 8 things during a campsite breakfast, and I have gone up to around 10 devices when friends add their phones to the pile. The wall-style outlets keep steady power without the buzzing you sometimes hear on cheaper inverters, and my sensitive electronics behave like they are plugged into the wall at home. The universal serial bus port with power delivery is legitimately useful. It pushes enough wattage that my laptop charges almost as quickly as it does on the manufacturer brick, which means I can edit photos and video on location without worrying about draining faster than I can refill. There is real surge headroom for startup spikes. I have used a small air compressor to top up tires and an inflator for an air mattress, and neither made it hiccup. A few realities are worth noting. The liquid crystal display can wander a bit on the percentage and the live watt numbers. If I am right at the edge with a bunch of devices turning on and off, the readout will bounce more than the actual experience suggests. This has not affected real use, but if you are into ultra-precise numbers, know that it is an estimate, not a lab instrument. Solar charging is exactly as weather-dependent as you would expect. On a bright day, I get a steady top-up while I am out hiking. On a cloudy afternoon, the refill becomes a patience game. That is not a knock on this unit as much as the reality of solar. Also, 1000 watts continuous is plenty for travel cooking, tools like a small soldering iron, and office gear. But it is not the right fit for big hair dryers or a full-size microwave. I keep my expectations aligned with that, and it has never let me down. Here is how it played out in real life. On a 3-day desert camping trip, I used it as the central hub. Mornings were coffee and oatmeal on the small induction plate. While water heated, my phone sat on the wireless charger up top, and my action camera batteries drank from the universal serial bus ports. Midday, the laptop came out for a quick edit session under the awning. The power delivery port kept it charging while rendering, and I did not hear any coil noise or feel any odd heat from the cable. In the evening, it ran a string of warm white lights for the site and a little fan in the tent to move the air. Back at the car, I plugged it into the 12-volt socket and let it sip charge while we drove to the next spot. I brought a folding solar panel for the second day, and under direct sun it added a solid chunk of capacity by lunch. The whole time, I did not have to shuffle plugs or micromanage. I turned on what I needed and let it do its thing. At home, I used it during a power outage that lasted a few hours. I kept the cable modem, the wireless internet router, and the living room lamp running, and I charged 2 phones and a tablet. Everything stayed online, and I could work on the laptop while the power delivery port kept up. That situation sold me on its value as a home backup for the essentials. Not a whole house solution, but enough to keep you connected and comfortable until the lights come back on. One specific use case I keep coming back to is cooking on the road. I like a small single-burner induction plate because it is safer and easier to control than a camp stove when there is wind. I set it to a modest level, boiled water for coffee, and then made eggs in a non-stick pan. While that ran, I had a tiny blender mixing a quick shake, and I topped off camera batteries before a morning hike. The GRECELL handled that breakfast routine without blinking. If I cranked the burner to max, it would overrun what a 1000-watt station can comfortably supply, so I just keep it a notch down, and it stays stable. A few thoughtful touches make daily use better. The wireless charging pad means I am not hunting for a cable every time I walk by. The battery management system cuts power to a device once it is full, which has saved my phone from sitting at 100% and cooking all afternoon. The auto shutoff when no load is detected preserves capacity when I forget to turn the section off. The handle is thick and rubbery, which matters when your hands are cold or sweaty. The rubber bumpers on the corners have already paid for themselves. I bumped it into a metal chair and a rock on 2 separate days, and the case still looks new. And the port layout keeps the mess to a minimum. Camera chargers on one side, laptop on the power delivery port, lights on the wall outlet, everything in reach without a rat's nest of cables. There are small trade-offs. The display readout can feel a little optimistic or pessimistic depending on the moment. The wall outlet sitting low means some bulky plugs fight for space. Solar charging on a gray day will test your patience. And the weight, while manageable, is not something you want to carry long distances. None of those have been deal breakers for me. They are just the quirks you learn and work around. If you are a camper, a road trip person, a weekend creator charging camera bodies and drones, or someone who wants a reliable backup for a few key devices at home, this hits a very practical target. It is tough enough to be tossed in a trunk, simple enough that anyone in the family can use it, and powerful enough to cover cooking, lighting, and work gear without stress. If your needs include a big microwave, a heavy hair dryer, or power tools that draw past that 1000-watt line for long periods, you should look at something larger. For everything else, the GRECELL UL1000 has been the dependable middle ground I reach for first. If this video helped you, subscribe for more real-world reviews and drop your questions or your own tips in the comments. Thank you for watching.